Good morning. Lesson 1-2, Understand Proportional Relationships. So today you should be able to use models and ratio reasoning to understand how a proportional relationship can exist between quantities. All right, baking. Baking is a good one when we're doing proportions. This one's got a lot of tape diagrams. We don't really use tape diagrams in 7th grade, but you're welcome to go through that if you like. So when baking, the ratios of ingredients is important to maintain. The table shows a common recipe for pizza dough. Ta-da! In this recipe, the ratio of cups of flour to cups of water is 3-1. Flour to water is 3-1. And you would want to keep that the same throughout. So if you wanted to double your pizza dough because you wanted to make twice as much, you would times this by 2, and if you times this by 2, what would you have to times this by? That's right, 2. So 3 times 2 would be 6, 1 times 2 would be 2. Okay, and then this ratio is proportional to this ratio. Proportional almost always means equivalent, which might be easier to remember. Let's do example 1. The recipe for homemade glass cleaner indicates to use a ratio of 1 part vinegar to 4 parts water. Vinegar, water. 1 part vinegar, 4 parts water. And when they write part, they mean for whatever unit of measure you use here, use the same unit of measure here. That's all that means. Is the relationship between the vinegar and water... sorry, I skipped. Elise used 3 tablespoons of vinegar, 3 vinegar, and 12 tablespoons of water to make the cleaner. Is the relationship between the vinegar, water in the recipe and the vinegar, water in Elise's cleaning solution proportional or equivalent? Remember, if I write, you write. And you can pause me if you need to. So we're going to see if they're equivalent. So what I would do is look for a relationship. How do you get from 1 to 4? Yeah, times by 4. Well, what's 3 times 4? It is, in fact, 12. So, yes, they are proportional because you multiplied by the same factor. Let's look at the check. Refer to the recipe for homemade glass cleaner in example 1. Marcus mixed 1½ cups of vinegar and 6 cups of water. So again, we're going to have vinegar and water. And if you remember before, it was 1 vinegar to 4 parts water. And Marcus is going to say, I'm going to have 1½ cups vinegar to 6 cups water. Is the relationship between the vinegar and water in the recipe and the vinegar and water in Marcus's cleaning solution proportional or equivalent? Well, again, how do you get from 1 to 4? Yeah, times by 4. So we'd have to do the same thing here. Times by 4 times 4. And for sake of time, we'll just get out our little calculator. 1.5 times 4 is 6. Wow. Yes, Marcus's recipe is equivalent to the regular recipe. Think you can handle that? I bet you can. Okay, let's go over here to example 2, and we're just going to skip on down to the check. You're welcome to read through the example and work through it with your book. That would be a good idea. One type of yarn costs $4 for every 100 yards. So we're just recording English to Mathlish. $4 for every 100 yards. Another type of yarn costs $5 for every 150 yards. Is the relationship between this one and the relationship between this one proportional? Okay. How do you get from 4 to 100? What would you multiply 4 by to get to 100? Yeah, you'd times 25. There are 4 quarters in a dollar. So we need to times this by 25. And if 5 times 25 is 150, proportional. 5 times 25 is 125. Oh no, that's not 125. No. And our explanation, 1 uses a factor of 4, while the other uses 5. And that would totally work. Answer in a box. Okay, let's look at the last one before you get to your homework part. A basic slime recipe calls for 1 part borax, 24 parts white glue, and 48 parts water. So let's work out here where we've got a little more room. We've got borax, white glue, I'm going to put G for glue, and W for water. 1 part borax, 24 parts glue, 48 parts water. Remember, the parts just mean the unit of measure. You could be using gallons or you could be using teaspoons. The relationship between borax, white glue, and water is proportional. If Catalina has 3 tablespoons of borax, 3 tablespoons, and will use it all, how many cups of white glue will she need? Ah, look at this. Tablespoons and cups. This is where they try to trick you, so you got to be on it. We want to know how many cups of white glue. Well, I'm not going to put cups here. Let's first find out how many tablespoons we need. So how do you get from 1 to 24? Yeah, times by 24. So what are we going to do to the 3? The same thing. That's how we keep things proportionate. 24 times 3, 72. So we'd need 72 tablespoons of white glue. But remember, the question wants our answer in cups. And there are 16 tablespoons for every cup. So we need to take 72 and divide it by 16, and that will equal the number of cups. 72 divides 16 is 4 1/2 cups. And we can write a quick little sentence here. Catalina will need 4 1/2 cups of white glue. Now we have shown our work. We've written our answer in a sentence, put it in a box. Okay? Good luck.